Okay, let's have a look at page 466, Developing Inquiry Skills. Return to the chess problem on page 463. That was the one where you put 1 on the first square, then you double it, and you got 2, and you double it and you got 4, and then you double it and you've got 8, 16, 32. And we keep on doubling it. Now we know enough already that we should be able to find out how many grains of wheat are on the last square, and we said that there's 64 squares. Okay, so n is 64, and we can find out what is on the last square. But how can you find the total number of grains of wheat on all of the squares? You should also be able to find the number of rounds of tennis played until the final. This was a second example on page 463. But how can you find the total number of games played? Okay, so this part here is to do with the tennis example on page 463, and this part here is to do with the chess example. Okay. Let's have a look at investigation 3. It's on page 467. The following are geometric sequences: A, 1, 5, 25, 1, 2, 5, and 6, 2, 5. And we have B and C. Now what you need to do, it says complete the following table for each sequence. So we have to write down U1 for A, B, and C. A, B, and C, U1, so there'd be 1 and then 6 and then a 2. Okay, we're just going to do A together. So we're going to fill in this line and this line and this line and this line. Now how do they differ? Well, this one is the sum of the first 2 terms. So this is looking at the first 2 terms. See, n is 2. This is sum of the first 3 terms, sum of the first 4 terms, and sum of the first 5 terms. But we're just going to look at A. Okay, so we're going to have a look at just A, this set. We're going to fill in these. We write a 1 here. U1 is 1 for A. R looks like it's 5. R squared would be 25. R squared minus 1 is 24. R minus 1 is 4. Sum of the first 2 terms is 6. Okay. Here we got 1. R is 5. 5 cubed is 1, 2, 5. 5 cubed minus 1 is 1, 2, 4. R minus 1 is 4, and the sum of the first 3 terms is 31. And here we got 1, R is 5. To the 4th is 5 times that, so that's 625. 625 minus 1 is 624. And this is still 4. Sum of the first 4 terms is going to be 31 plus 125. And that's 156. Good. And here we've got 1, 5. And then we've got 5 to the 5th is 3, 1, 2, 5. And this would be 3, 1, 2, 4. This is still 4, and the sum of the first 5 terms is going to be 156 plus 625, so that's 781. Okay, so it says, see if you can find a connection between the sum of the first 2 terms, that number, R squared minus 1, that number, R minus 1, and U1. Okay, and then look for it here, the sum of the first 3 terms, so that number, that number, and that number. And similarly this one, that number, and that number, and this one, the sum, how do we get that number from this one, that one, and that number? And if you have a look here, 24 divided by 4 would be 6. Okay. 124 divided by 4 is 31. 624 divided by 4 is 156. And 3124 divided by 4 is 781. Okay. But what they've asked us to do is also look at U1. Well, U1 is 1. It's a bit hard to tell here, but I mean, for example, you could go 1 times 24 divided by 4. 1 times 124 divided by 4, you get that number. So maybe that's the relationship there they're looking for. It says, using the connections you discovered, suggest a formula for the sum of the first n terms of a geometric series in terms of U1, R, and N. Are there any values that R cannot take? Okay, well, for example, if that was on the bottom of a fraction, then you couldn't have R as 1, for example, because we don't want to put 0 at the bottom of a fraction. Okay, and this is what they came up with. The sum of n terms of a geometric series is written S to the sub n. The formula for this is, okay, we see sigma again, so we've got I equals 1. So if U1 plus U2 plus U3 plus U4 all the way up to UN. And this looks like what we were talking about. We've got U1 times R to the n minus 1 divided by R minus 1. And you can write it like this or you can write it like this. They're exactly the same. It's just that sometimes when if R is less than 1, then it's a good idea to use this one because then we don't get a negative on the bottom. Now R can't be 1 because we wouldn't want to have 0 here or 0 here. So you can use either formula. They're in the formula book. And just as a note, the way you come from here to here is just multiply the top and the bottom by minus 1. And we can do that because minus 1 over minus 1 is 1, and you can multiply anything by 1, and it doesn't change it. It doesn't change the value of it. Now there's another check here which is really clever. It says to see how we might get that formula, consider the series 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. Here U1 is 1, R is 2, right? 2 times 1 is 2, 2 times 2 is 4, 2 times 4 is 8. If we take the sum of this series, we have the sum to 6. There's six terms, so we've got 1 plus 2 plus 4 plus 8 plus 16 plus 32. So we do that. Okay, now we're on page 468. The next step in this process here of calculating the summation of the terms in a geometric series is multiply the previous one by 2. In the previous one we had S6 equals 1 plus 2 plus 4 plus 8 plus 16 and plus 32. But now we're multiplying it by 2. So we're saying 2 times that is 2 times 1, 2 times 2, 2 times 4. So we do that. We can do that. We just multiply by 2 on both sides. Now we're going to subtract 1. That was from the previous page. We're going to subtract from 1 this one here, 2. Let me just rewrite 1. Now we said that S6 was equal to 1 plus 2 plus 4 plus 8 plus 16 plus 32. Okay, so we're going to have this and we're going to minus that. Okay, and it says, you'll see that a lot of the terms cancel out. So if you had this and you minused from that, you've got a 2 here and you've got a 2 there, so they'll disappear. So this will stay. We'll have 32 minus 32, and then we've got the 64. So we're going to end up with 1 minus 64. Okay, solving this for the summation to the 6th term, you get this positive number 63. Look, it's negative here. That's because the summation of 6 terms minus twice the summation of 6 terms, this side is also negative. It's negative summation of 6 terms equals minus 63. So multiply both sides by minus 1, and we get the summation of 6 terms is 63. And we check that against the formula. Well, the formula, that's the first term. So it's 1 minus 2 to the 6th power over 1 minus r, that in this case was 2. And that equals 1 minus 64 minus 1, and that equals 63. Now you could have used the other formula. Remember there's 2. And then we've got 63. If you look at 3, this one, and compare it with the formula, you will see that on the left-hand side we have 1 minus 2. Like if we take S6 out of this and we put it in brackets, we're going to have S6 outside of 1 minus 2, aren't we? There. which is 1 minus r, and in our case r was 2, so 1 minus 2 times s6 is 1 minus r times s6. And on the right hand side we have 1 minus 2 to the 6th, 1 minus 2 to the 6th, which is 1 minus r to the 6th. And so there's our formula. And these are the things we looked at in the table in this investigation that we just did. Okay, great.